like tradition are you a part of? That'd be like the primer for the question.
Okay, I'm basically part of a non-denominational Protestant tradition.
Okay, that's perfect. So then, what is it about this kind of actually? It kind of reminded me of the you're talking about biblical criticism of the New Testament text. What is it about the Protestant canon that you find to be, I guess, you gravitate more towards that than, say, another canon of a different Christian denomination? What
I'm
is it
not.
specifically about that? Okay, fair enough.
I'm absolutely undogmatic in that sense. For my 66 book Bible and the Catholic 72 book, or the Eastern Ethiopian Orthodox with their 84 books, I'm willing to. I'm not very familiar with a lot of the Eastern traditions with a lot of the larger canons, but from Catholicism and so forth, I'm perfectly happy with accepting their canon. They accept mine.
Well, when you're looking at canonization in the broad spectrum of things, you're faced with the fact that over 30 different books were removed from the New Testament, not including the pseudepigraphia and various apocryphal texts taken out of the Old Testament. I mean, you could definitely compare and contrast those and make arguments for or against certain doctrines, but it's difficult to reconcile that with the image that has typically been perpetuated by the church as a whole, if you can see it as an entity of being a unified Christianity. You have over 1,000 different denominations, all effectively saying that they're related to a unified Christianity, if through nothing else, apostolic succession.
Well, if I could just kind of cut in there, I think you kind of raised an interesting point. Well, if you're kind of talking about New Testament kind of apocrypha and pseudo-apocrypha, what's interesting in my studies is there's, like Ruben says, there's about 30 Gospels and a bunch of other things that are New Testament apocrypha. But what I do know, and I know this for about as certain as I can know anything, that the 27 books contained in the New Testament compared to any other apocryphal writing are all earlier. But from what I know, the earliest apocryphal writing that I'm familiar with is the Gospel of Thomas. And through my research, being pretty generous in ascribing to the early camp, I would say we could probably date that Gospel about 120, which is the earliest known apocrypha that I'm familiar with, which is later than every other canonical text in the New Testament. So the canon of the New Testament was already, those books were already written well before the Apocrypha. The early Christian church accepted everything that was available that we still have and know of and that they preserved. Every other text is older.
You see that there's a difficulty when looking at these texts from this period. Keep in mind, for those playing the home game, that this is before the printing press, several hundred years before the printing press, in fact. So it's difficult to determine writing when it's written. It's a part of the reason why when you're looking at biblical scholarship, there is still, to this day, a heated debate over when things were written and when they were not written. But a conversation that I see that is rarely discussed or rarely put out there is the fact that canonization is ultimately self-justified. If you're going around saying that this is the absolute, this is the only thing that is accepted by this authority, by the authority of the church, and you look at this retrospectively in what we have preserved in modern day, it's definitely reasonable to suggest that there may have been earlier versions of these writings than those that we have preserved that may have been in existence but no longer survived, that were destroyed beforehand. And the ones we do have are only there in short because they were preserved by people who thought they had historical relevance.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. That's absolutely a possibility, and in fact, I'm quite sure that that was the case.
And it's not just with Christian texts, it's with a variety of different ones. The fact that we even know anything about a lot of ancient Sumerian culture is from chance. I mean, some of the very mythologies of these ancient cultures were found randomly in the sand by accident. And one of the main ones we have from Sumerian culture was found by a farmer in the middle of the desert in the 20s. Might have been the late 1918, something to that effect. But from what I remember, it was found in the sands. The very topography and the climate itself is what allowed a lot of these things to survive, like in ancient Egypt and in Babylon, things like this. And I'm definitely not going to make the argument that our dating systems are completely wrong, or go off on some paranoid rant about them being biased. But there is a degree of error when you're talking about the dating of items, and particularly when you're looking at the dating of items in the very short scale of time. Longer scales, it's a little easier to make justifications for when a certain thing was made or how long it's aged. But there are a lot of things that can affect the aging of a document. Something written on a scroll. So, not to mention the fact that a lot of our tools and techniques to date certain documents are often based on style, are based on the variety of language, and are based on markers that are supposed to direct you towards a specific culture from a specific time period. A lot of the texts that are lost to time that we had from Alexandria, they had commentary in them. They had variations on a theme. They had several different copies of these different texts. But what we do have may have been a copy of a copy. So it's really difficult to say for certain when some of these documents were written. To me, what is much more interesting is looking at a document as it is and saying, what relevance does it have to that culture and that time period as a whole? Looking at the broad spectrum of things. Why was that document written in the first place? And then looking backwards from that, and then seeing, well, when was it written? And how does when it was written tie into its larger cultural, macro-cultural meaning?
I say do both. I say to do the paleography and then do the other as well. Don't do one first and the other. Do them both and do them simultaneously. From what I've been reading, especially I've been reading pretty extensively on P52, is the dating is done in a sketchy kind of non-certain manner, and it's really based on kind of a consensus of credible paleographers that will usually date them within a range based on linguistic writing styles, comparison to other manuscripts of similar age. But the problem with that, and what I've been reading, is those other manuscripts have also been dated in the same way. So you're using another manuscript that's been dated off another manuscript that's been dated off another manuscript. So there's kind of a lot to go off of. So I don't think that that's enough, and then I think that the higher critical concerns that you were talking about are also a great way to date those things. For example, the higher critical methods of which you were propounding as a way to date the things are basically how we get the dates for the synoptics, especially Mark. It's not done through any of that paleographic stuff. I mean, the earliest stuff we have is from like right around the year 200. And there's no way to really tell how early it is from there based on that witness or that manuscript witness. So it all comes down to higher criticism at that point, and the higher criticism for the dating of Mark is super interesting, and you can't shake a stick at that stuff. It's legitimate scholarship.
But at the end of the day, the fact that there is this variety of perspectives on these subjects, not just including biblical scholarship, but various different ancient cultures from different time periods, shows that there is a rigorous examination that exists. Even if there's some ideas out there that, for all intents and purposes, are crackpot theories, the fact that there is that diversity in the first place shows that there's that level of enthusiasm, that there are people looking at it, examining it critically. When we use the term criticism, we often just use it as a person over-examining things. We use it almost in the negative, but we forget there's a meaning that's behind that. I've mentioned this a few times in chat, probably a number of times, in fact, that criticism, kritisismos, comes from the critic school in ancient Greece, and these were people who would examine a particular idea or subject matter on the basis of another subject. So, for instance, an example that you would use is perhaps you could use gender studies to examine comic books. You could use economic theory to examine art. Typically, criticism was done as an intellectual exercise, as a thought experiment in and of itself, taking very disparate subject matters and examining it through the lens of very different things, not only to challenge the public and the perceptions of these things, but also to challenge the philosopher themselves and the philosophical schools that were engaging in this sort of thought experiment. So this diversity, ultimately, whether we recognize it or not, is very much in the spirit of what criticism was supposed to be about, looking at classical philosophy. And that is my rant for the day. Welcome, Jonathan. It's nice to see you again.
Nice to see you as well.
How have you been?
Oh, pretty good. Very good Labor Day weekend. So, how about yourself?
Oh, quite good. I've sort of expanded my palette of different alcohols, and I found one that I really like. I wanted something that was very simple, that got very little of, without a bunch of foo-foo in it. And brandy. I have a palate for brandy. I was raised on a lot of wine.
Mm-hmm.
It's very similar. I've not been a huge whiskey fan, though. Aged scotches, 13, 14, 15-year-old scotches are good regardless. You'd be an idiot to not even appreciate it, if for nothing else, of the amount of time and effort that's gone into it. But
Absolutely.
I seem to definitely, as far as liquors are concerned, have a palate for brandy. This thing that I have is rather inexpensive, and it's quite good.
What is it?
It was recommended to me by 4 different people for a cheap and inexpensive brandy that's local to me. It's the Paul Masson Grand Amber brandy.
Oh, yeah,
I got
that's
the
fantastic.
I got the VS, and it was still amazing. So
Mm-hmm.
this is my base. This is my baseline. So now I know that anything that tastes worse than this shouldn't be even a VS or a VSOP. So so I have a good starting baseline for a solid, and it was inexpensive. It was $7 for 375 milliliters. I mean, that's basically a week's worth. I'm having 2 shots as a nightcap. So
Yeah, it's good.
yeah, so I'm definitely looking forward to trying eau de vie, like an apple or a peach or a pear brandy.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's great that there's so many, and in my home state of California, brandy is actually is reputable. Many of your
Absolutely.
brandies, they come from my home state.
Yes.
Paul Masson, E&J, Corbel, going all the way from the cheapest thing you would use for cooking to an XO brandy that's $50
Mm-hmm.
a bottle.
Yep.
I do eventually want to try cognac and Armagnac. I think I've only had like a small shot of it at my old friend Jean Michel's house. His dad Jean Claude gave me a shot of a really nice cognac. It was probably 16 or 17. I didn't even know what it was. So
Yeah,
um,
I remember back in college we were broke. I mean, completely out of money. And so we gathered our coins together and we bought like a $10 bottle of Christian Brothers brandy from California, and it held us until our next pay. It was pretty ridiculous. Where they're like sharing the same bottle. It was very low.
but it's really got some longevity to it. I mean, I
Oh
had
yeah.
some yesterday and I had some just now, and two shots last you 2 or 3 hours, and you just have a nice gentle feeling. You're not
Mhm.
drunk, you're not out of your mind. It's very
Mm-mm.
much like having 2 or 3 glasses of wine just all at once. So,
That's exactly right.
and that's how it should be drank. And I wanted to be able to drink something how it was meant to be drank, straight or on the rocks.
Okay.
No, without, because when you add a lot of sugar to things, it tends to. I usually end up getting sick. There are a few exceptions. I have a few like go-to drinks, like a particular way I make a martini, and with vodka, I usually get ginger ale and lime.
Hmm.
It's very simple, very well balanced, and can make if you're at a bar or a get together and they only have really bad vodka, ginger ale and lime can make that bad vodka taste okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I get through like a reception or something like that if I'm at that sort of environment. But yeah, um, yeah, it's quite good. So I definitely want to try a few more. They have the OSP and an XO from this particular brand, but I don't know. I'm gonna keep looking around. There's a place down the street from me I haven't been to in a while. They're very similar to Beverages and More, but they're more local to me here in California. So I'm not gonna give them a try. They have an amazing section of liquor and liqueurs. So
Do you like honey drinks?
yeah, I've had Berenjäger once or
Okay.
twice. A few of my close friends are German. And I like liqueurs. I'm a big fan of Nice liqueurs like Pastis, Ricard, Pernod. I've had absinthe a number of times. Kubler is my favorite absinthe. It's a French Swiss absinthe. And I've also had Ouzo. I've tried about 3 months ago the Ouzo Barbiani. It was the
Hmm.
best Ouzo I've ever had. It was really inexpensive but amazing. It tasted like a really solid pastis.
Good.
And it's nice when you come home to have something that's reasonably inexpensive that you could have a drink with yourself or with a close friend, have a
Mhm.
dessert, watch a little Netflix or, read a book. And you're not getting, out of your mind drunk like you were when you were 21 or 22. You
We
don't
never
really
got
appreciate
out of our minds drunk. We
twice.
were the philosophy club,
Fair enough.
sophisticated guys, and so we would all pull our money together and buy $70 bottles of scotch and $80 bottles of brandy, and we'd all sit around a table and talk philosophy, and so it was really fun.
You're doing that appropriately. That's what I should have been doing. Not to say I was crazy and, egging houses or anything, but it's usually I was relying on somebody who's, oh, this is like the best thing ever. No, it's not. It's crap, and I have
Yeah.
heartburn. Fuck you. Excuse my language.
Well,
But yeah.
yeah, we had, I guess the big popular thing were hams and Natty Light and Vladimir.
Ugh.
All disgusting, bottom of the earth trash. We were like the rebels. We weren't gonna have any of that.
I have a few things on my complete blacklist that I will not drink. I will not drink Bacardi 151. I will not drink anything by Absolute.
Sure.
And the dark alcohol, there's only, and I've tended to sort of not drink them as much, but the one dark alcohol I will not drink, you cannot pay me enough to drink it, is Wild Turkey.
Really?
To me it tastes like turpentine.
Okay.
Like like it's so bad to me that I want to clean with. To be
Even like a
fair,
wild turkey dry?
I haven't tried the dry, but the standard one you get at the store, the regular, is so bad. It was so bad I felt nauseous when he opened the bottle.
The only experience I've had that with is that brand that makes all the cheap stuff. My mind's blacked it out. It's so bad.
Okay. Is it
What
a
is
is
it
it a
called?
whiskey?
Huh?
Is it a whiskey?
No, it's one of these makers that makes everything.
Oh God,
They
that's
make the
amazing.
rock and rye. They make the really cheap brand schnapps. What are they
You're
called?
Du Coupier?
No, not the Kuiper.
Because they make brandy, they make weird whiskeys and
Oh
like
no, and the Kuiper
plastic
isn't very
bottles.
good either. I think it starts with an S.
S. There's Sky Vodka. S. I'm thinking of a schnapps whenever you say S.
I know.
Yeah, I'm probably seen it a bunch of times. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah, I'm just gonna type in rock and rye in a Google search and I'll find it. Because they're the only ones who make the rock and rye.
I think everybody has a palate though when you're
Yeah.
talking about this, whether it's culturally informed or just informed by your specific family or your specific tastes. Like I was raised mostly on drinking wine. We had Cabernet Sauvignons at the house. Lots of kind of aged cheese like a sharp cheddar, that kind of thing. Sometimes we'd have like blue cheese and weird stuff like that.
Mhm.
So the liquors I've enjoyed tended to taste more like wine, and it's
Mm.
probably why I've gravitated towards brandy. I've had beers and ciders and everything from mead to absinthe, but that was through my own sort of efforts. But a lot of my friends who were raised in beer families tended to gravitate towards whiskey, which is an observation I've made recently.
Yeah, I like the whiskey. Jacquins. That's what it is. That's the trash. Throw it down the
Uh,
sink.
that sounds like cleaning solution.
I
Um,
think it is.
yeah. So
Well,
how's the whole work thing been going?
it's changing. I started this new job, but within the first time I was able to come in late, I had an interview for another position.
Oh wow.
Um, I'm trying to get out of the industry I'm currently in, and so it's been very hard to do that. Um, and but I'm very hopeful. I think the first and second interviews went very well, and as if I get the job offer, I'll be able to tell you all about it.
Oh great. Definitely, I look forward to it.
Yeah, that's interesting because at the same time, my wife's also um, looking to get another position as well, and so there's a lot of things up in the air right now. If we both get the jobs that we're desiring, we're definitely going to end up moving. So it'll be even more exciting.
I'm sure. Well, that's a positive way of looking at it.
Hmm.
It's an adventure.
That's right.
I haven't been in this channel or this room in a long time. How's everyone doing?
Good. How you doing, Farhan?
Very well, very well.
Glad to hear.
How are you doing?
Good. Real busy lately. Lots of good stuff going down. So
Busy is good. Busy is always good. In fact, not busy is
absolutely.
bad.
Definitely.
Can I ask what you're busy with?
Really a lot of social events, a lot of different groups. There's been a couple of birthdays. There's been a couple of kind of just networking group discussion groups, a lot of that kind of stuff, social events. Mostly on the side of the social. Few of it's just been kind of assisting people, going to certain events, helping with setup and cleanup and that
I
kind
did
of
not mean
stuff.
to do that. I'm sorry. I just totally left the room. I clicked X
you
as you were explaining. Sorry about that.
you didn't miss anything. You're fine. I was just talking about setups and cleanups and crap like that, going to little shindigs and potlucks and stuff like that. So, but
Mhm.
good busy with a variety of different people from different backgrounds, and really getting out there and kind of getting out of your comfort zone is a really positive thing.
Yeah.
Really is. And I think at every stage in life, if you feel a little stagnancy, challenge yourself. Put yourself out of the typical mold you've been doing for 2 years, 5 years, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I don't mean to dominate the conversation. That's the whole thing. I'm currently working on a project that I'm hoping will pick up, but I feel like I have been stagnating for a while, at least a year, and so we'll see how that goes.
Have you talked to Frank before?
I've talked to him on the phone.
Good. Well, one of
Yeah.
the things he's mentioned a few times here in chat is a philosophy that's rather common to Sufism, and it's this view that you should never totally be comfortable as a Sufi. That you should put yourself in different situations so you never get too comfortable with where you're living and with the things that you're doing. And I think that's an idea that you find in a lot of different cultures. I think nobody wants to be too comfortable. We sometimes here in America we dream of the white picket fence, but there's also, particularly among men, there's this concept of wanderlust. Always having a new adventure over the horizon to pursue. But it's definitely the case with women too, by all means.
No, I can see that, absolutely. The idea of constantly wanting to do different things. I think in my family, I'm going to go ahead.
I said it can sometimes work against you too if you're always so constantly looking for excitement that you forget to stop and smell the roses.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, you can't always just be jumping around from idea to idea. I know with myself, I kind of occupy like a stabilizing force in my family, where you could say like I'm the most like traditional in a lot of ways, and these types of things, and so therefore, I end up becoming like just when I say conservative, I mean not like in the modern sense of the term, but like in a non-adventurous way, although I want to be. So like I want to do something and I won't do it because I'm like, oh, I need to be home to make sure everything's okay. What? So I think with that I need to break out a bit, and I get my little thrills here and there by camping, hiking, backpacking, that sort of thing. But I want to do something like take a week off work and just drive across the country and just see America, honestly. I really want to go to the Mexican border. I'm serious. I really want to freaking go there and just walk up to it and check out the Rio Grande, or what is it called again? Oh my God, the river that separates the two, Mexico and Texas. That's amazing. Mexico, Texas, river.
You were right. It's Rio Grande.
Rio Grande, okay, yeah. I almost said Rio de Janeiro. No. Have they really?
Rio de Janeiro is in South America.
It's a city, yeah. That was embarrassing, but no, just I want to check it out. I want to just explore and just see what else is out there. Not just, I mean, I've seen the Canadian American border, not the main ones, but like just there would be like a neighborhood that's divided amongst the two, and people would just walk across the two and just like have tea with their friend, and it's not even like a big deal. I want to go check that out. I want to see just all of America. I want to see Central Asia, and that probably won't happen for a while. But yeah, something like that. That's my current desire.
Speaking of kind of worldliness, I actually had a kind of a cool experience earlier today, and I'm spending some time with my older brother, and we were just looking for some places to go out for kind of an early supper while I was kind of driving him around a little because he was doing a little car work on his work truck. So we ended up going to a Filipino restaurant. I've had Filipino recipes, but never from an actual restaurant. Maybe once I had a snack at one really late at night, but I never actually had, sit down. So I had a very weird dish. It was good. It was weird, but it was good. I had dinuguan. It's it's a blood stew. with the sort of Filipino equivalent of like a chicharron, like it was like a pork belly, and it had pretty much all the leftovers. It had
Mm,
stuff like hearts and intestines and all a bunch of weird stuff, and it was actually really
that's
really good.
interesting.
Yeah, it was unique. I'd never had anything like that before. I mean, I've had tripe, I've had like cow tongue, a bunch of odd stuff, but this actually took the cake. It was a totally different texture than what I've had. So it was
Mm.
very. I was being very worldly today.
Reuven, you said that I support Trump. I think I'm pretty far from supporting Trump.
I think he's being tongue in cheek.
I
I
know, I
wouldn't
know, I
pay too
know,
much attention.
I know, I know, I know, I know. That's just funny. I don't. I mean, I don't. I don't not support him, but I don't really support him either. He's basically a protectionist. He's not quite a. He's a populist, if you will. I think that's the proper term for him. But no, I just been really serious about helping people. That sounds very trite, I guess, but I mean that sincerely.
No,
And
no, no, no.
my
But you
friend and
got to
I,
start small. You got to start small.
yeah, that's what we did. So a friend of mine, we one of my best friends, we sponsored an orphan,
Oh
um,
wow.
and we today got information about her, the orphan, because I guess they send out like updates or something like that. So they sent me like an email, like her name, where she's from, her school, like all this kind of stuff, and I was like, oh, that's
Mhm.
pretty cool. So we were joking. We were like, oh, hey, we have a child together. So and then just like random organizations and charities, and that's kind of where I spend my money, is those types of things. I don't really buy a lot of clothes. My shirt I'm wearing is like 7, 8 years old now. So yeah, that's
Oh,
I'm trying to get serious about that stuff.
I'll be right back.
Sure. I see Shamos, you're also here.
Oh, sorry, my mic was off. Yeah, I just stopped in for a little while. How are you doing?
Very well, very well. Do you think you've made any progress with what's his name, DPR Jones, or Magic Sandwich Show guy?
No, no, no. DPR is a nice guy. He likes to have a couple drinks and then come on G Plus, and he doesn't take it all too seriously. So I didn't really expect it to get anywhere.
Mm. He's definitely a nice guy. I mean, I like him as a person, but I do get a little bit annoyed with some of the stuff he says. Um, I feel like it's the same arguments every day, again and again. Um, yeah, just continuously without any change. And I don't feel sometimes like he's gaining from what he's been told. I don't know if that's your experience as well.
Yeah, that's pretty much took the words out right out of my mouth. But it is what it is. He's like you said, he's a nice guy.
So Saudi Arabia is bombing Yemen, and there was a little girl who lost both hands and both arms, legs rather, in the bombing. Probably some who's a Shia girl, I'm assuming. It's terrible. I mean, it has to be because that's the only part of the country they're bombing. If you bomb, you're going to hit civilians. I don't care how much you try to be surgical or we're upholding the government or whatever the hell. You're going to kill civilians.
Okay, I'm back.
Cool.
Just having a little sandwich. So is this bombing only going on in Yemen?
Yeah, pretty much the western part of Yemen.
Hmm.
It's kind of a weird conflict, how the tables have turned in a sense, but yeah, it's give you a quick summary of it in a nutshell. I'm not an expert by any means, but just I've been following it for a while, and I met a guy in college who's currently there, and um, yeah, he's not happy with it, so, to say the least. If you're interested, or if I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I'm really not.
Sure. Um, so basically, it used to be that there was a government in Yemen that was a kingdom, a monarchy, and it was actually a Shia government, but which is a sect of Shiism called the Zaydis, and they were just a monarchy. You know, monarchies tend to support monarchies, so the Saudi government supported the government, and I forgot the name of the king there, but the government that rules all of Yemen, and it was kind of like a we respect you, you respect us, and during the Arab revolutions that happened, this party came called Ba'ath, which was like a socialist party that swept through the Arab world, and there was a war, civil war that happened in Yemen, and the Saudi government actually tried to support the kingdom, but the kingdom lost, and this Republic of Yemen came into power. So after some time, Saudi flipped the script and said, okay, we support um, the government in Yemen. And the government in Yemen was, it was there. And at this time, Iran and Saudi Arabia had a fledgling relationship, but it was a sort of good relationship. You know, kind of on the rocks, but it was not bad. And this Yemeni government is fighting against unfortunate Al Qaeda forces in the eastern part of the country. And at the same time, there was this brewing Shia uprising in the western part who wanted more power because they felt that, like, political reasons, part of the Arab Spring, they felt the government was corrupt. They didn't like the current government. They had issues with the way the money was being dispersed. And so this guy, Abdul Malik al-Houthi, comes up and he has his rebellion, and they get power, and eventually they start to fight against the government, and they keep on fighting, and it actually grows. And this, because they're Shia, they kind of have this like Shia union, and they're also enemies of Saudi Arabia. They have this kind of alliance, if you will, with Iran. Now, I don't know how influenced Iran actually is in the conflict, but Saudi Arabia is like, whoa, we're not having an Iranian proxy militia at our border. And so, under the pretense of upholding Yemeni neutrality or a Yemeni authority or power, they have just invaded Yemen, and they are launching. Initially, it was a bombing campaign, and now it's a troops on the ground or boots on the ground, whatever the hell campaign. I think. Actually, I'm not that part. I'm not positive about it. I'm almost certain that that's happened to put down the rebellion, and they'll crush them probably. But in the process, I don't really care about the political aspect. I really don't care. I don't care who has power, but I do care about those people who are getting bombed, and that is not cool in my books. I don't have any dog in the fight in terms of Shia versus Sunni, but there's people who are getting killed, and that's terrible. So that's the unfortunate reality right now. It's heartbreaking.
Info.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is.
How's your health, by the way? I think you had some health issues a little while ago.
Health issues. You talking about the sleep?
No, I think it was something about with your back.
Oh no, that resolved itself. It was a mattress.
There's something else you said. I don't remember.
You sure?
Yeah, I must be mistaken.
Back.
I must be mistaken.
I might have strained my back probably a few months ago. It's been a while since we talked.
Maybe it was something, I don't know. You said you were unable to work for some reason. I don't remember.
Well, I am on disability. I told you that already.
Hmm.
Anything anybody would like to talk about?
Nothing in particular.
Yeah, me either. So I'm putting it out there.
Trying to learn how to use Git. The only other thing is that I went to a what's it called? Um, I was at a Panera Bread, and I just happened to meet a guy who was just happening to be doing business with the company I work for. He's like developed like some, I think it was called like Drunk Dialer or something like that, some program that you use on your phone that you can, um, like if you're drunk, it like detects that you're drunk or something like that. Drunk, I don't remember. Um, it's a tool that like it'll prevent you from drunk dialing people, and it'll know where you are, and it'll, if there's an alert, it'll send out an alert to a bunch of people. Drunk mode, that's what it's called, drunk mode.
That just sounds utterly great for somebody's reputation.
Restitution?
Reputation.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I just thinking of my own industry. If I was even associated with something like that, I can guarantee you that my job would be in question. And I don't work for a religious organization. I work for a secular industry.
Hmm. Well, a lot of people are saying this app sucks. Actually, an alarming number saying it was not good. That's this guy. When I met him, he sounded like he was like on top of the world, and like his app was just taking off, and he was making millions of dollars. And he was like the main CEO, I guess, of this company that was doing this.
Yeah, it's one of the things with the internet. It doesn't really mean anything about how good the thing is that you're selling or off. I'm just speaking from experience.
Mm-hmm. Hey, John, are you present?
I'm sorry?
As in, not Jonathan, but John. John Gischala? Gischala?
I'm disappointed that you couldn't pronounce it.
How do you pronounce it?
Come on, you can do it.
Okay, let me see. Oh, is it a cha instead of a cha?
There you go.
Oh, wow, I did not see that coming. Okay. Gischala?
Pretty good, I guess. Yeah. So what's
Right.
up? What's going on?
I was going to say, are you Chabad now? Because you have the hat on. That's usually a Chabad thing.
Yeah. No, I don't know. That's not a. That's like some Mexican hat.
Oh.
I guess they all look alike, huh?
What?
So what's going on?
No,
What,
just
oh,
saying,
the hat?
sorry?
Was that what you were going to ask me? The hat?
That's all I was going to ask you. Literally.
Oh, okay.
Nothing. Yeah, no, I can do the cha. It's not, the cha is, I grew up saying it. Although I heard something recently that the cha, the letter cha is historically in Hebrew, the cha was pronounced as a ha, the way that the Arabs say it.
Only with one letter.
So are there two variants of the cha?
There's a chaf, which is a cha, and there's a het, which is a hard H.
Okay. So
And in modern Hebrew, because modern spoken Hebrew has kind of more widely spoken just because it's used outside of liturgical uses, is a simplified version of language. So instead of het, it's a het.
That's what I meant. Yeah, that's what I meant. I heard. I mean, I'm not an expert in this, but um, yeah, I heard that from a speech. Or not a speech, one of those YouTube videos.
What's up, Path? What's going on? Awful quiet. I watched a podcast you were on the other day or whenever it was. I thought you did a good job. Book of Job. Pretty interesting. So, Path, will you be continuing the Book of Job thing we were doing, I think, a couple months ago? Or. Because I think we got to, like, what, chapter 10 or something like that?
got a little bit of a philosophical question to discuss. Um, One of the things I did tonight is I watched a documentary on Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks, and one of the things that he did that a lot of the journalists and people that worked with him noticed is he betrayed people, he threw them under the bus, and it's actually one of the reasons why he was sort of really hated. Um, not It really wasn't so much that he was releasing information; it was how he how he dealt with people. So he was like giving information to one news agency and then pawning them off on somebody else. And then there was the whole rape allegation, which seemed pretty credible, despite the fact that he had been releasing information. And then I was thinking also about how, like Lord of the Rings, like there's like this, even though it's a fictional sort of universe, there's a special realm devoted to oath breakers, people who betray folks and do not keep their word. And I was just wondering, or just going to ask the question, what is so unique about betrayal and oath breaking that makes it something that's considered especially heinous across cultures? Yeah, Reuven, that's one of the things that was talked about. Apparently, the rape claim was really about he refused to wear a condom, and they weren't really happy about that.
I think a betrayal of trust goes against one of the most fundamental kind of foundations of a working society. It's built off of trust that people will perform what duties are assigned to them. If you get what I mean, that the milkman's going to go from house to house every morning to deliver milk. The mailman's going to go from house to house and deliver mail. Um, Things like that. Obviously, different societies, different roles, different caste systems, different class systems, however you want to slice that. But when you have people that are oath bound, it's not something that is done so lightly. So if you break that oath, that's something that society as a whole, I think, is very afraid of, and it's something that makes them very angry. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a bit of sense. I mean, I wonder, like, at what degree is an oath so much that it is something that is an egregious violation of trust. Um, I don't really like where do you draw sort of like the line between something that's well, you shouldn't have done that and it was a lapse of integrity, and you really should apologize to. You have completely and totally violated the public trust. You have committed an egregious error, and we you may have ruined things so much that we don't know if we're going to be able to continue our association with you.
It's dependent on how big the association is, how big the affiliation, the institution. Think about how seriously the military takes oaths of service. Compared to even a government employee working at like the DMV, which it's in some ways is still considered is given a higher amount of uh, emphasis than perhaps working at a retail establishment. but military is something. There's a much larger, much more important association than McDonald's. So that oath is taken a lot more seriously.
Hmm.
Well, Gabriel, I mean, you have oaths about not taking things from the store. You steal, you get fired and thrown in jail. You betray the trust of the military. You get charged with treason. There's a reason why there's a separate charge.
Gotcha.
Yes, Ruben. The blood oath of Walmart. It's a
Great
well-known
value.
fact. Great value comes with great sacrifice.
Yes, exactly right.
Ridiculous. I don't know what would be funnier, a scene from Soylent Green in a Walmart, or what is it, the one with the pod people? It had Donald Sutherland in it. I'm trying to think of the name of it. Oh, it's based on a name. But when the pod people would be discovered, the duplicates, they would scream like this really blood curdling scream. I gotta figure out what the name of that is. It's gonna bother me.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's one of the
Invasion
challenges.
of the Body Snatchers. That's what it was.
I
There you
think
go.
one of the challenges about oaths and taking oaths and the value of trust is, I think, in our postmodern society, it's really hard to point to um, universal places of behavior where we can really find a black and white um, criteria um, for at least common moral prescriptions, I guess. I think one of those places you do find that is oaths and betrayals and the importance of trust. And it actually makes me a little bit more optimistic because it tells me that those people who say morality doesn't matter or I'm just a law unto myself, their argument sort of from a secular perspective falls apart.
Yeah, another example you could use for people that want to get so extremely relativistic about it. It's like, would you prefer that your surgeon and the nurses on staff were kind of just doing whatever they'd like to do at the time? I mean,
Yeah.
they have the Hippocratic Oath.
Yep.
There's very good reason for that. That regardless of class or race or gender or all those other things, your place of employment and all that they are required to help you.
Mm-hmm.
There's a code. There's an oath specifically to that profession. I mean, obviously making sort of the idea of a level of trust and oaths in the much broader spectrum of society as a whole would be considerably difficult, but at the very least, you can sort of justify that there are pragmatic moral justifications, that there are necessities of certain codes of ethics for specific things. Like a lawyer, whether they're defending a defendant or prosecuting, somebody else's defendant, they are required to do that as their job. What is required to them by their specific, their side of a particular case. It's not to say that there isn't biases and that it's not a difficult thing to do, but It's a framework, that they have. That they have that one constant reminder of what they're doing. So.
Yeah, it's just interesting to me. When within the sort of large umbrella of Reformed theology is this subset called covenantal theology, which is all about the importance of oaths and covenants between God and man, and those important and how those sort of relationships work out. And they sort of define their entire theology about God keeping His promises to His people and man not really keeping their part of the bargain. Um, um, it's interesting to me that they have an entire system developed around this whole idea of covenants or oaths or you know keeping one's trust. And it's also interesting. Those are the same things It's the same place that you also see like a moratorium on taking vain oaths because they are so important. So is anyone in and around Philadelphia for the coming of the Antichrist to Philadelphia? His Holiness Frank. I have some friends who are staying out there. Um, yeah, but I think they're just sort of going to hunker down. They've got provisions stocked up, so they'll be ready at the end of September. I was sort of explaining that to someone today. During the say about the 1700s, 1600s, I've read a lot about like sort of early um, American religious history, and people would have been up in arms if the Pope visited in that time of history. I mean, a lot of the writings, especially from New Englanders, are always talking about the fear of the popery taking over, and when you're giving into having like Catholics live happily in your area, you're giving into the forces of the Antichrist, and it's just amazing to me the the flexibility and the utility that they use the term. I get a kick out of it, so now I'm just sort of trolling people because they don't understand the historical concept of the Pope as the Antichrist. They're like, you mean Jesus is coming back and you're really serious about this? I'm like, no, I'm not serious at all. I just think it's funny.
You're welcome. Popery is always horrible. There's too much of
Indeed.
it. It's overpowering.
I mean, that being said, I think one of the interesting things about Frank is he's been one of the most active popes. You know, he's really. I mean, the office of pope. I mean, is they've got the cross keys. They've got the keys to hell itself, essentially. They can bring relatives, or extend your term in purgatory, or because they believe in purgatory. And the Pope even has the authority to forgive sins here on earth. And I think that was there was this big article recently about him forgiving uh, mothers who committed abortion. And I think it is important for church members and everybody to forgive. But I think that I don't think people realize the theological significance of what the Pope was doing there. I mean, he really was exercising his power as um, the representative of Christ on earth. The person with whom his words are the same as Christ's words, and his actions are this. You know, it, I don't think people really grasp the power and the religious power with which the Pope purports to have. And it's just something that I run into people who are just ignorant of religion, but they know the Pope's coming to Philly, and it's like, gah! Think about this for a second. Mm. Oh, I know. It was actually funny. I went over to visit Westminster Seminary, and back when it was founded, Machen bought a huge land mass, and for the expansion of the seminary. And shortly after his death, the land was sold to the Catholic Church, and the Pope at the time came to visit said church and consecrated the graveyard. And so when it came time to expand the seminary, they weren't actually able to purchase that land back because the Pope had been there and consecrated it. So it was a little bit of a problem. Once the Pope comes someplace, it's sort of off the records, I guess. Cannot touch it. I just cannot believe the bastion of Protestant Presbyterian Orthodoxy would sell land to the papacy. I just doesn't grow up right with me, man. It'd be interesting. I mean, I would actually like to see, I mean, obviously as a Protestant, I'd like to see a pope who would systematically dismantle the entire Catholic Church governance, um, and adopt a Presbyterian form of government. But it would be hilarious to have a Donald Trump-style pope. You'd have to have a toupee, though. Now, when you say Trump's Presbyterian, you probably mean that he's part of the either an independent Presbyterian church or a PCUSA church. There's no way he's in the PCA or the OPC. And Trump generally, like any businessman, tends to employ religious language whenever it suits him. He tries to stay away from it at all costs, for the most part. At least that's what I've noticed. He's been reported to have been a Catholic, a member of the Dutch Reformed Church, a Presbyterian, and he married his third wife in an Episcopalian church. So he's a bit of a grab bag. In his most recent interviews, he said he's Presbyterian. He went to an independent, or no, he went to a PCUSA church in Jamaica, Queens. Or a PC, yeah, yeah. Rick Santorum is ridiculous. I don't even understand why he's running again. It's nobody likes him. And the things that he says are just, I don't understand what. Don't get it. Previously attended services with the Reformed Church of America. PCUSA is the Jamaica Queens, okay. Yeah, RCA is a bit of a liberal. I mean, they used to be the sort of the head of Dutch Reformed beliefs in America, but they went liberal a few, I would say at least 30 or 40 years ago. Just because you're an elitist, it doesn't make you a Calvinist. That's certainly the criticism. They used to say that the only people who attended Presbyterian churches were doctors and lawyers and millionaires. But I think that's long gone. Yeah, that's exactly right. You can go to the First Presbyterian Church of Pittsburgh was oh gosh, Andrew Carnegie's church, and to this day you can come look at this gigantic steel cross that he had made and donated to the church. He threw a lot of money into that church, and they're not even a part of a denomination; they're actually independent. But now, I think nowadays, if you're super rich and you attend church out of tradition as opposed to belief, you're more likely to be a part of an Episcopal church or a PCUSA church. Tends to be the case. lots of stuffy old rich people who are very hard to get along with. Not a universal claim, obviously. Just a generalization. And I mean, I guess there was in some circles it is still fashionable. It's a question about what's fashionable in your individual community. In most places it is still fashionable to be a part of it, but the church has to be insanely liberal and progressive for it to be fashionable to attend there. I think you would be correct in using that term. As Machen, when he founded Westminster, wrote a book called Christianity and Liberalism, and basically, sort of, back in the 30s, was like, this is you guys don't essentially believe in anything that could remotely be considered, Christianity. What you believe in is sort of like this sort of self-help um, community surrounded around generalizing, good feeling beliefs. um, it's a different belief altogether. Um, and to this day, it is more of a pseudo paganism. It doesn't really believe in any real deity. In some cases, it just sort of centers around essentially hero figures, heroes of the Bible, heroes of the modern day. A lot of the language is sort of like that. I think in a lot of ways, the modern church, for the old mainline churches, is a lot like, in their theology, a lot like what they were during the Dark Ages. And the reason I say that is, the priests were, during the Dark Ages, sometimes illiterate. They just sort of taught what they felt was right. They had a lot of conversations together, about what their beliefs were, and I mean, some of them just didn't even weren't even able to read the Bible. And today, yeah, they're able to read it, but they have no comprehensive way of understanding it. And their theology is a mishmash of competing beliefs that stem from everything from New Age religion to uh, different pagan ideas, and it's just a mess. And they really there is no unification of ideas at all. It's it's a new dark age, a theological dark age. Just everybody is literate. That's the way I see it, at least. There was a time where everybody knew what orthodoxy was. Well, at least Protestant orthodoxy. We had the canons of Dort, being this response to the Remonstrance, the Arminian heresy. You had, and even in England during the Reformation, the Puritans and the Episcopals, and the Presbyterians, they were all Reformed. They were all Calvinists. They all understood each other. They disagreed on church government and a few other things. Um, but they all spoke the same language. Today, that just is not the same case.